Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you see this. My name is Jadasi Moore. I am the Instructional Specialist over at Harper Archer Elementary School in Atlanta Public Schools. And today I am going to be talking to you, giving a brief overview about how I create and implement electronic or virtual interactive notebooks. Some things you need in order to begin, or some materials that I start off with specifically in order to begin, is I begin with, of course, PowerPoint, because that is where we will build a lot of the materials. I just like starting there. It's easier to manipulate the items when you get them on the slides, and then you can save everything, but I'll walk you through that. And then I also start with any approved resources that we have. Our math program over here at Harper Archer is Ready Classroom. So when I start to build our interactive notebooks that we use over here, I begin with Ready Classroom. I also utilize word problems from released Park Assessment. After we have our resources all together, what I do is I start with an interactive notebook cover. I like to color code my covers just to make it easy at glimpses. When I go into my files, I can say red covers are 5th grade, yellow covers 4th, so on and so forth. And then I'll also begin with a blank piece of notebook paper because we're building a virtual interactive notebook. So getting into the actual build of it, I like to anchor my anchor charts on the left because we read from left to right. So as our scholars go through the actual questions and activities, they always have a resource in order to reference while they're going through the process. So my anchor charts are always anchored on the left with all questioning, word problems, activities on the right. So these are some examples. So we just start with the base. I don't put the text boxes that they're going to actually enter their answers with. Those come later. So these are some examples of pages that I've built. If you run out of examples or you decide you want to have more pages because you have some early finishers, Google, of course, is your friend. I would go to Google and do a quick Google search on whatever my topic is. So for example, we're talking about cubic volume. I would type that into my Google search and then click images. So from here, I like to choose images that will either be easy to clean. So I would choose an image like this because cropping it, I can easily cut out the equation at the bottom because of course we don't want to give our scholars the answer, and then get rid of all of the white space on the sides. So again, it would be copy image, and then I would just come in here and I would paste the image. Now here is where I would actually crop it. So just for the sake of saving space, I would get rid of the questioning at the bottom because we don't want to give our scholars the answer. And then this is what I mean when I say clean it up. So now I have my new question or my new volume problem. And then if I wanted to ask a question about it, such as, let's see, if we want to do one that was like the other, just write an equation to find the volume of the prism. This is just a quick and clean way to actually build that page. So it's up to you as to your images. I always like to vary my questioning the images because we never, we want to prepare our scholars for multiple opportunities or a variety of question types. So after I do all of that and I get all of my pages built, going into composite figures, and then also giving them opportunities for multiple choice questions. So after I build all of these pages, I would come up to, we need to go to Save As. So I already have my folder set up. I have it for my interactive notebook, volumes, things like that. But right here, where you are able to save it as a PowerPoint, what we want to do is we want to shortcut this and we want to save it as an image. I'm just going to add the word background to this. So again, we have JPEG file. We want to do all files. And then it tells us each file and then gives us the location. So we're going to click OK. So the hard part is over. You did all of the creating that you have to do. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into an actual Google slide. This is how I build it to make it interactive and also how I deliver it to my scholars. So some words of advice. I build it in PowerPoint because when I add it into Google Slides, I like to put all of my pages as backgrounds. One thing that you will learn is, yes, it is an extra step. However, it's a step in preparation of implementation. Because once you get into the classroom, if you build everything in Google Slides, then you can have scholars who can accidentally delete the word problem or, oops, I got rid of the image. If everything is a picture in the background, you know your slides are going to be solid, and so the only thing that they may accidentally delete is a text box. So I'm going to open my background, and I want to choose an image. Once again, let me just show you quickly. I'll go right here to background, and then I want to choose an image. Now, in order to make this a little smooth, I like to cheat. I pull up the insert background box, and then I open the file where my images are. And see, it's right here where it says IMD setups. That is a folder that the system built. And so I see all of my slides here. So I just click slide 1, and I drag it. There's our cover. And then we're going to do another new slide. We want our slides to be blank, so apply layout, blank. And then in an effort to kind of quicken the process, we're just going to duplicate it. And for our example, we're just going to build 1 to 6 pages. So come to slide 2, background, choose image. Remember, we already have our folder up, so we can click slide. Page 2. Come to page 3, background, choose image, get our folder up. Let's go ahead and select slide 3. Slide 4, background, choose image. Let's get our folder with our images, and I'm just going to vary it a little bit. I would go in order for every single one, but for our example, we're just going to switch it up just a little bit. Choose image, open our folder, slide 13. All right, so right now we have an interactive notebook, and see, this was our example slide, so I'm sorry, we're going to get rid of that one. All right, so we have 3 slides. Again, I like to have more than what I need. For me, it is great to have a lot and not need it than not have enough and be in the middle of class and my scholars are done and it's just like, oh my God, what do I have to do? So they would have much more than just 3 pages. But right here, you see how we built, and as I click, I can't accidentally delete anything. So that is just one thing that I do in preparation for the scholars who have accidents. But in order to write an equation, they need a space to do that. So I come up to the text box, and I just drop a text box on the page. I put double question marks inside of all my text boxes to make it easy for my scholars to identify it. Give my text box a border. And I also just add a quick background to it just for aesthetics, and it makes it easier for my scholars to see. And I don't have as many questions of where do I type it? Where do I type it? It's already there. And so all they have to do is tap, and you see how our cursor pops up. So I always tell them, when you see double question marks, tap in the middle, type your answer, delete the question marks at the end. Tap, type, and then they delete. So here's one text box. I'm going to copy this text box, copy, which is Control C, and then Control V will drop the text box on the page. And so this one says show your work. They are able to actually type it out in the text box, and then you will have scholars who will quickly learn how to add text boxes of their own if they want to demonstrate more work. Okay. So now we have a very quick version of our interactive notebook. I would also give them a space on the cover just for name, homeroom teacher. so that they can identify it, just in case you have a teacher who wants to print these out and send them home, like as an example or an artifact of student work. You already have the cover built in. So after this, I'm going to name my file 5th grade volume. And so we have our document. Our almost final step would be going into our Google Classroom, and we're going to upload it. So I am just going to choose a Google Class that I have on hand, and then I would go to classwork, create. We want to create an assignment. We'll just say week of 11/20. And then I hit my drive because that is where it's going to live. Here's our document that we just made. I select it, insert. Now, this is one step. Please be mindful that you do this. When you're giving this to your scholars, view file, the scholars can't do anything but read along with you. We don't want that. We want our scholars to be working as we work. Saying students can edit file, that puts everybody in the same document. That is not always a terrible thing if you have something like a constructed response activity and you want to put groups of students into one file. That is what student can edit file is great for. However, for our interactive notebook, I'm going to make a copy for each student. So when I click assign, each of my students are going to have their own personal copy of this interactive notebook. I would just click assign. And now it's sitting in my Google Class. So we have our document right here. You can see how many are assigned. If this was the actual class that I was using for this, I would have all of my students there. And then you have the option of opening each individual student's work as they're working. But that's another presentation. So that's how I build my interactive notebook and assign it out to my scholars.